Okay, so let's get right into it. We're going to break down how a modern cyber attack really works, from the very first step to the last. We're pulling back the curtain on the playbook attackers use to get into the systems we all depend on every single day. This was the absolutely chilling thought inside the White House as they watched, live, as hackers took over Ukraine's power grid. I mean, literally, mouse cursors were moving on screens all by themselves, circuit breakers were being flipped remotely, and whole cities just went dark. This wasn't some sci-fi movie. This was proof that digital attacks have very real, very physical consequences. And that event, really, it just highlights this massive shift that's happened. The conflicts of the future aren't just on physical battlefields anymore. They're happening right now, silently on a new digital battlefield, one that spans the entire globe through the networks that connect us all. Yeah, this has gone way beyond the stereotype of some lone hacker in a dark basement. We are now in an industrial age of cybercrime. You've got state-sponsored groups, like Russia's Fancy Bear, who went after the DNC, and you've got organized crime syndicates realizing that hacking is often way more profitable and a lot less risky than their old-school businesses. So, how does an attack like that actually get started? Well, long before a single line of malicious code is written, there's this critical phase of reconnaissance. Think of it like a heist movie. The attackers are casing the joint, becoming digital detectives to learn absolutely everything they can about their target. And they usually start with something called open source intelligence, or OSINT for short. It's basically the art of piecing together a puzzle using information that's already out there in the public domain. Data that companies and, well, all of us, willingly or, more often, completely accidentally expose to the world. Now, when you look at a list like this, you might think, what's the big deal? But for an attacker, this is a treasure map. Social media profiles, they reveal personal habits. Job postings, they can tell you exactly what software a company is using. There's even a story of a social engineer who found a disallowed folder in a public file, which led him straight to a CEO's private files, including a photo of his passport. It's all out there. Okay, so once they've done all their homework, the next step is to find a way in. And that entry point almost always comes down to one of two things: a weakness in the technology itself, or a weakness in the people who use it. And this is what's so important to get. Attackers have a choice. They can go after the machine, trying to find a flaw in the code, or they can go after the human, trying to trick the person operating the machine. And as you're about to see, both of these paths can be incredibly effective. So let's start with the technical route. Get this. For every 1,000 lines of code in a typical piece of software, there are about 20 to 30 bugs. Now think about the millions upon millions of lines of code in the apps we use every day. Vulnerabilities aren't just a possibility, they are a statistical certainty. There are always cracks to find. And this is a perfect example of how they use those bugs. Now, this gets a little technical, but the core idea is surprisingly simple. When a program performs a task, it saves a return address in its memory, kind of like a bookmark, so it knows where to go back to when it's done. An attacker can use a bug to sneak in and overwrite that bookmark with an address of their own. So, when the program thinks it's going back to normal, bam, it jumps straight into the attacker's code. And just like that, they're in control. But then there's the human path. As the legendary hacker Kevin Mitnick proved over and over again, why bother with all that complicated code breaking when you can just ask for the keys? This quote is from a real situation where he just called someone up, pretended to be a coworker in a hurry, and got them to literally walk over to his desk and grab his security token for him. This simple 4-step playbook is the essence of human hacking. It's brilliant in its simplicity. You create a believable story, build a friendly rapport, ask for just one small piece of information, and then you use that trust you just built to get what you want. The reason it works so well is that it exploits our natural human desire to be helpful and to trust others. Now here's the thing, getting that first foothold, whether you tricked a person or exploited a piece of code, that's just the very beginning. The real goal and where the real damage is done is what happens after an attacker gets inside the network. So to make sure they can stay inside, attackers use tools like a Trojan Horse. And just like the old Greek myth, this piece of malware looks like something you want, a useful program maybe. But once you let it in, it opens up a secret back door that gives the attacker a permanent way in and out, letting them come and go as they please, often for months, completely undetected. The 2016 hack of the Democratic National Committee is a textbook example of this entire process. It all started with a simple phishing email, the human path in.
That one click led to persistent access, which allowed the attackers to just sit inside the network quietly for months, gathering data. And the end result? A massive data breach that had a very real, very public impact on a presidential election.
When you put all this together, the spying, the exploits, the persistence, what you get is this never-ending, constantly escalating arms race. It's a continuous battle between the people building the weapons and the people trying to build the walls. And on the offensive side, the arsenal is just huge, and it's always evolving. You've got this mix of deep technical skill and slick psychological manipulation. Everything from massive botnets that can knock huge parts of the internet offline, to incredibly sophisticated attacks that turn a trusted software update into a weapon. And on the other side, you've got the defensive playbook. This is all about building systems to be secure from the very start, constantly stress testing them for any weakness. And this is the crucial part, creating a culture of awareness. It's about training people to be more skeptical, more resilient users. But here's the really sobering reality check. After all the billions spent on defense, after all these advanced strategies, the person at the very top of U.S. Cyber Command has a pretty blunt assessment. Our adversaries are not afraid. The current playbook just hasn't created a strong enough deterrent to make them think twice. And that leaves us with this huge and honestly pretty unsettling question. We have built our entire modern world on a foundation of incredibly complex code that we know has flaws, and we run it all with human beings who are naturally wired to trust. So in a world like that, what does security even mean? Is it a destination we can ever actually reach, or is it just an illusion?